ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोर्श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य तोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थे भिग्यस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, chapter 22nd, verse 26. These are instructions of Sanat Kumara to King Prithu after he had asked the question about his welfare. So Prithu Maharaj, he spoke that Prithu is already a great devotee of the Lord and does not need anything, because there is nothing higher than bhakti. Bhakti is that which brings all auspiciousness, and this is the conclusion of all the scriptures. So then they gave a list of various activities how to attain this bhakti. They use the word rati. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has divided bhakti in three: sadhana bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. So a sadhaka engages in sadhana bhakti, and that leads to bhav bhakti. And once one attains the bhava, then there is no more sadhana. Then prema will become manifest very soon. So they gave the process how to attain this bhava, which is another word used here is rati. And now in this verse he describes what happens when one attains this rati or this bhava bhakti. So Sanat Kumara says, Yata ratir brahmani nashtiki pumanacharyavan jnana viragaram hasa Dahatya viryam hridayam jivakosham panchatmakam yonimivurthitognihi. When one attains this nastiki rati or irrevocable love to Brahman the Lord, and who is the person who attains this? He says he is Acharyavan. This will happen only to a person who has an acharya, who has a teacher, who is coming in a parampara. Then jnana viraga ramhasa, and two things will be naturally generated in such a person. One is transcendental knowledge or realization, and there will be detachment from any sense pleasures. As it is described in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, Janati Ashu Vairagya Jnanam Jaya Dahaitukam. So there are two concomitant effects of bhakti, jnana and vairagya. The bhakti gives natural realization. Even when one is performing sadhana, then many realizations come to person, and as one is progressing, one also becomes renounced naturally. One loses interest in sense pleasures, and the influence of avidya or ignorance is dispelled. This is a natural outcome of bhakti. But when rati becomes manifest, then the ignorance is removed completely. So therefore it says Dahati Aviryam Hirdayam Jeev Kosham Panchatmakam. Then the Jeev Kosha, Kosha means covering, or the house in which the Jiva is living, which means the subtle body, which basically means all the samskaras of material pleasures. They are all burnt because they are avirya, they don't have any more power. They become powerless or impotent because of the light coming from bhakti. Just as ignorance is removed or darkness is removed by light, then ignorance is dispelled by the rati or devotion to them. So bhakti is supposed to be a combination of samvit and hladini shakti. So samvit means knowledge and hladini means pleasure. So there is knowledge, and because there is pleasure, there is renunciation naturally. So devotee is not that he lacks understanding. There is understanding in devotee. He actually knows the truth, and also is not lacking the pleasure coming from it's Ananda Swarupa, because bhakti itself is Hladini potency. So devotee is naturally satisfied, content, happy. And therefore this Jiva Kosha, the linga deha, the subtle body, identification with the body is removed. Because this identification is caused by avidya. Because of ignorance of one's true nature, ignorance of one's relationship with the Lord, there is identification. And this identification has no beginning. So there is general ignorance in every conditioned soul here in the material world. And then it manifests specifically for each individual according to the prarabdha karma. So everybody has got the general avidya in the form of identification, which means not knowing oneself. And then specific avidya in relationship to one's prarabdha karma, what kind of body one has and how one is identifying with it. So all this is removed by the rati. So it does not mean that it happens just at the last point. It's actually a gradual process. Right from the beginning it starts happening. When one attains rati, then it is complete. So that is the meaning, Dahati Aviryam Hirdayam. So the word Hirdaya here means this knot in the heart of the real ego and the material ego. So there is real ego of the soul, and then there is the material element called ahankara, which comes from pradhan, mahatattva, and then ahankara. So this ahankara is a material element, and it is inert, it is jada, but this eye of the soul, it gives energy to it, then it becomes conscious, and then it thinks that this is me, this identification. So we are working with that eye, that material eye, which is getting the light from the real eye. So we keep on dealing in the material world through that ahankara. And that ahankara is very important to function, because without that we cannot function, and people become depressed when the ahankara is not functioning properly, or various types of things manifest through that. But we have to know the distinction. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Tata kim syat ataha yadayati. What happens after one attains this rati, that is described here. Acharyavan Guru Bhaktiman. Acharyavan means one who is devoted to the Guru. So in the Upanishad also it is written Acharyavan Veda Purusha. That a person who has devotion to Guru, he knows. So that's why the word Acharyavan is used here. Acharyavan Guru Bhaktiman. Rati Utthayor Gyan Vairagya. So from Rati there is Jnana and there is Vairagya. There is realization and renunciation. And it is very powerful. It is not just weak understanding or some kind of a faith, but it is very strong, because it is realization now. It's not just understanding coming from Shastra, but one's own awareness. So there is a strong force of this. And therefore what it does is that aviryam nisprabhavam jivasya kosham avarakam hridayam. This heart, which is also here called jiva kosha, or the covering of the soul, it becomes impotent. Ahankaratmakam linga deham puman dehati. And this is in the form of this ahankara, this ego. So now the ego of the person changes. Changes means one knows that one is a servant of God, not enjoy. One will still continue to work with the body, but is not influenced by it. Here of course it is said that he burns it. So burning is basically this identification. That is the ahankara. That is the asmita in the Yoga Sutra, that I am this. So avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinaya, these five. Katham bhutam panchatmakam. It is made of five things. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinaya, panchaklesha, tadatmakam. So avidya is the root cause, the ignorance. Avidya comes asmita, I am the body. And once we identify with the body, then there is raga and dvesha. Then there is like and dislike for sense objects. And then there is abhinaya, there is a complete absorption in the body, which gives rise to fear. So then there is a feeling of fear and insecurity in everybody. And as much as one is identifying with the body, then that much is the feeling of insecurity, which gives rise to anxiety. So people are in great anxiety because of this feeling of insecurity, because of identification with the body, because of not having devotion to God, not having even faith in God. So all this anxiety, stress, tension, this comes because of atheistic thoughts, not believing in God. So bhayam ditiya vinivestasad vishadapetasya vitariya smriti tanmayata abhajed buddha gurudevata. So this fear comes because of absorption in the body and caused by ignorance of the Lord. And this is because of Maya, which is called avidya here. And what is the solution? It says, Tum avajed buddha. And one should worship Guru Devata Atma. Guru Acharyavani said here, devoted to Guru and his instructions. So that is the solution. Otherwise everybody is suffering these 5 types of kleshas. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhiyas. No one is spared from this. And there is no solution for this except for devotion. Nothing else can relieve him. So yatha arani utthito agni swayonim aranimeva dahati tathaiva. So just as you take arani, you take wood and you rub them together and fire is generated. So fire is generated from the wood and it burns the wood itself. So fire has this characteristic of destroying its very source, the killer of its own mother. So in the same way, it says, Tathaiva prakrita buddhindriyadav linga dehe eva uttita rati tameva dhet. So similarly, we use our prakrita deha, material body, material intellect, material senses, material mind to perform bhakti. And then rati will manifest in these things. And then that rati will, which is manifesting in these material senses, material mind, material intellect, will destroy them. So they will become spiritualized, just as fire burns the wood. Vannina kashtam dahati iti yukto vannireva kashtam dahati iti vat darshantik samvati. So just as we say that by fire he burns the wood. So when we say by fire he burns the wood, it's actually the wood which is burning, which is the fire which is burning the wood, not that the person is burning. So in the same way, it is the rati or bhakti itself which burns the very senses and body. It means the subtle body in which it becomes manifest. So this is a very nice explanation he is giving. And then what happens after that? After this is destroyed, then it says Dagdhashayo mukta samasta tadguno nevatmano bahirantar vichaste paratmano yarad vyavdhanam purastad swapne yatha purushastad vinase. When this subtle body is destroyed, then the person becomes free completely from all the qualifications of the subtle body, that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. This concept is completely dropped. And then it's just like when one wakes up from the dream, then one does not see the dream objects anymore. One may remember, but one does not see them. So in the same way, such a person, he sees all these material objects outside and feelings of happiness and distress inside, but he does not associate with them anymore. He knows that they are not for him, or they are not his pain and pleasure anymore. So, just like coming out of the dream. So he says that paratmanor yad vyavadhanam purastad. These are the things which were creating a obstacle between him and the Lord. So now he sees everything as manifestation of the Lord. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yo mam pasyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mai pasyati. Sees everything in me and sees me everywhere. So this is what happens. Because this ego identification is that which is creating the distraction. So tatah kimata, what happens after that? Dagdhasyo dagdalinga deha. When the material body is burnt, the subtle body, ateva muktas tyaktas samastas tadguna kartritvadev. Then all the qualities related with the subtle body, they are given up. And what are the qualities related with subtle body? Kartrit, bhoktrit, that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. So this is completely given up. Atmanah swasya bahirbahyam sabda sparshadikam bhogyam artham antah shok mohadikam cha nai vichasti. Then he does not see the objects outside as the objects of enjoyment. And he also does not associate with the feelings of distress or delusion or depression, happiness, and such feelings which come in the mind, they can come and go. So he is not associating with them. Paratmano, Paramatma Jivatmano, Yadeva Madhye, Purastad Purvim Yavdhanam Asit Tanne Pashyati. So previously this was creating an obstruction between him and the Lord. These objects. So now that obstruction is removed, and therefore Paramatmanam eva pashyati, therefore he sees only the Lord. Now the obstruction is removed, like the cloud is removed, then you can see the sun everywhere. But if the cloud is there, then that little cloud covers your eye and you don't see the big sun. So that is the situation of person who is realized. Atmanam indriyartham cha param yadubhyorapi satyasya upadho vaibhuman pashyati nanyada. So now he does not see all these upadhis. So Atmanam indriyartham cha param yadubhyorapi sati asya upadho vaibhuman. So as long as this upadhi is there, this identification is there, then person feels the material ego, which is the link between senses and sense objects. Because when material ego is there, then the senses they relate with the sense objects. And that is related with the soul. But once this is removed, then there is no more relationship. So then the jiva remains in its own side. So this idea of seer and seen, that I am the seer, this is the seen, I am the enjoyer, this is the enjoyed, this remains as long as there is this linga deha, the subtle body. But as he said that this subtle body is destroyed, burnt, then this distinction of enjoyer and enjoyed is removed. That I am the witness and these are the objects seen. So this is removed. And we know this even when we go in this deep sleep state, then we don't see this distinction of seer and seen, because the ahankara is not functioning in that time. So linga deha eva jivasya upadhi. This upadhi or this identification exists only in the subtle body. That's where it is. Saeva vyavadhan sabda vachya. And that is called vyavadhan in the previous verse. Means the obstacle or obstruction. Tat sattve tameva pashyati tadabhave paramatmanam eva pashyati. As long as this upadhi is there, then the person only sees the upadhi. Means he is only seeing the subtle body and what is happening in the subtle body. Because really speaking, what soul is seeing is the subtle body. Because soul is not coming in contact with the external objects outside. The objects are lying outside and the objects are contacted by the senses. And the senses are the ones which are sending messages. Some electrochemical message is going to the mind. And then there is transformation in the mind because of these sensations. And that is what is seen. That is what is called experience. Experience, which is basically in the form of like and dislike, happiness and distress, pleasure or pain, these two. It is nothing but a modification of the mind. So that's what is called manovritti. So that is what is being observed, nothing else. So as long as this identification is there, then the soul goes on observing this. Like a movie. It's like you sit in a movie theater. So you are sitting on your seat and things are projected on the screen. From the reel. At least that was the old system, now the new system, I don't know. But still anyway, there is a projection on the screen. How they project it now may be different. But in the old system they had this big reel running and the light is thrown through that and they project it on the screen. So basically there is nothing on the screen. Screen is empty and white in color. And then light is projected and you start seeing things. And then you become absorbed in it. Although there is nothing, just some light being thrown. But you become completely absorbed and you think that this is really, somebody is actually walking, somebody is talking, somebody is fighting, angry, love. And you become part of it. Although there is nothing. Then you switch it off. Then you see the screen and you see yourself. So in the same way, all this movie is coming from outside on the screen of the mind, and you are observing it. And because you are observing it, you are not able to see yourself. And as long as you will go on observing it, you will not see yourself and the Lord. Because Lord and you both are the soul and super soul. Both are situated in the heart. And in between there is the knot. So you are looking at the knot. And that knot is covering the Lord, and you don't look at yourself. So you cut the knot, then you see yourself, you see the Lord. So that's what is saying, that Atmanam Indriyartham cha param yad ubhyorapi satyashe upadhuva puman pashyati. As long as this upadhi is there, then the person does not see anything else. There is no way of seeing anything else. As long as the movie is running in the theatre, there is no way you can see the screen. It's not possible. So that's what is being described. Lingadeha eva jivasya upadhi saiva vyavdhan sabdavachya tat sattve tameva pashyati tadabhave paramatmanam pashyati. So when the lingadeha is removed, the upadhi is removed, then one can see the Lord. Atmanam bhoktaram upadhi dharam grastam jivam indriyartham bhogyam cha param bhogotham sukham dukkham cha ashya lingadehe upadhav satyeva puman pashyati. That one. So as long as this upadhi is there, this identification is there, then the person will keep on seeing the feelings of happiness and distress, which is coming from the enjoyment of the sense objects, which he contacts through the indriya. So indriya artham, indriya senses, artham means sense object, and ubhyorapi pashyati, sees this. But if this is upadhi is removed, then one does not see. Tadatu paramatmanam eva pashyati, then one only sees the Lord. So this is the definition of Uttama Bhakti, which is given by the Lord Navayogendra in 11th Canto, where they are saying that Sarvabhutesu yapased bhagavad bhavam atma Sarvabhutani bhutani bhagavati atmani yesha bhagavata. That one who sees Bhagavad Bhav and everything, because his identification is gone. So Bhutani Bhagavati Atmani Yesha Bhagavata, and he sees everything in the Lord. So this is this state when a person has attained Bhagavad Bhav. Bhagavad Bhav, Bhakti Bhav, Sthai Bhav, Rati, same thing. So then this becomes situated in the person's Atma. Nimitte sati sarvatra jaladau api purushaha atmanascha parasyapi vidam pashyati nanda annida. So he says that it is seen in the material world also that as long as there is the cause, such as a mirror or water, then one sees the object and the reflection. But if the mirror is not there, then one does not see that. So which means that as long as there is upadhi, then there is identification. As long as the reel is running in the movie theater, then you are identifying with some actor and relishing it, or sometimes suffering. Something unwanted happens to a person with whom you are identifying, some hero or heroine, then you also feel disturbed. So he says that as long as this nimitta, this cause is there, nimitte sati sarvatra jaladaupi purusha atmanasya parasyapi, then one sees the distinction between Lord and these objects, self and all these objects. So this distinction of the object and reflection is created by the medium. When that medium is not there, then there is nothing remaining. उपाधि सत्वे एव उपाधि धर्माध्यास है, सचोपाधि कर्मवशात मानुष देव त्रियगादिर भवति न तो तदभाव. So this upadhi is in the form of human body, deva body, animal body, because of one's karma. Good karma, one becomes deva. Medium type karma becomes human being. Lower type of karma, one becomes an animal. So if this body is not there, then there is no identification. Soul identifies because of the body. It's like the mirror on the movie running on the screen. Tatra drishtantamaha. So he gives an example. Nimitte jal tail darpan chakshuradav nimitte vidyamane eva purusha atmanah swasya parasya annasya cha bhidam upadher madhyam uttam anam bhedam pashyati. He says that as long as there is water or some oil pot or mirror basically in which you can see reflection, then the person sees the distinction between oneself and the other in the upadhis. That's the upadhis of good type, medium type, bad type. Tatra jale chanchalyam darpane nirmalyam chakshusi malinyam se yatha pashyati. So jal has the water has the characteristic of movement, and darpan has the quality of being stable and clean, and the eyes have the quality that they may have dirt in them. So tathaiva manus deva triya sharireshu bhadra bhadram keval abhadram cha pashyati nanad. So similarly one sees that human life is both auspicious and inauspicious, mixture of pain and pleasure. Sees that the body of a deva is auspicious, there is enjoyment, and sees the animal body as abhadram or inauspicious because there is so much misery in it. Jnanena upadhina setu na tatha pashyati kintu paramatmanam eva pashyati. But if the upadhi is destroyed by jnana, then one does not see it like that, but only sees the Lord. Bhaktya upadhi apgametu ekasmin atmani drishyadi bhede pratitir upadhiki iti drishtantena spashyati nimitta. Then he makes two different explanations here, that either your upadhi is destroyed by jnana or it is destroyed by bhakti. Means either you are following jnana marg or bhakti marg. So first explanation is following jnana marg and now bhakti marg. लोकेऽपि सर्वत्र जलदर्पणादौ भेद निमित्ते सत्येव आत्मनो बिम्बभूतस्य परस्य प्रतिबिम्बस्य च भेदं पश्यति न tu jaladiya bhavena. So just as when you have a mirror, then you make a distinction between the object and its reflection. But when mirror is not there, then there is no such distinction. Suddho jivo rati mahimna eva labdha chid ghanananda vigraha paramatmana eva tasya narayana Ramakrishna Chidananda Ghanakarasya Sadadvari Aishwarya Madhurivata Saundaryadikam Sviya Nayanadibhir Ashvadayet Iti Mukhyam Cha Phalam Drashtavyam Tasmin Yayo Paramhansa Mahamuni Nam Anveshani Charno Chalayan Ityadi Purvokta. Says when this distinction is gone, then by the power of one's devotion, one attains transcendental body, and then he sees that it is the Lord only, whether in the form of Narayana or Ram or Krishna, who has a transcendental body, and he has opulence, 6 types, or the sweetness, beauty, and it is Lord only who is giving all the pleasure by his own eyes, etc. As he gives tasmin yayo paramhansa mahamuni nam anveshniya charno chalayan ityadi, that when the Kumaras they went to Vaikuntha and they were stopped by Jain Vijay at the gate, then they got very angry and cursed them. At that time Lord, he got the news and he came walking on his own feet. So it is described that he appeared very beautiful, that he personally appeared pacify the Kumaras. That means he came there to give that sweet taste of his own beauty to them. So he was walking on his feet, which are searched by the great transcendentalist. Mahamuni Nam Anveshniya Charno Chalayan. So just as Lord was giving the pleasure of his beauty to them, in the same way he says that when this upadhi goes away, then one will realize the beauty of the Lord and see actually how the Lord is manifest everywhere. So that's the other explanation. Because then there is no such thing as bimba and pratibimba, that means spiritual and material. This distinction goes away. So up till now he has described the effect of attaining bhakti. What happens when one has devotion and what is one's experience. In the upcoming verses he describes when one is not a devotee and one is attached to the material objects. Because earlier he had explained that bhaktyahi asangah sadasad atmani syat nirgune brahmani cha anusarati. That when a person is asanga, completely detached, then by bhakti one will attain this staunch bhava in the Lord. But if one is not asanga, if one is actually attached to the material enjoyments, then what happens? That he is describing in this upcoming verses. Indriyair visyakrishtair akshiptam dhyayatam manaha Chetanam harate buddhe stambhastoyam iva hadat. So he says that those people who are absorbed in the thoughts of sense objects, their senses get caught in the sense objects, and then they pull away the mind towards it. And when the mind is pulled, then his viveka or power to discriminate is lost gradually. Just as if there is a kusa grass growing on the bank of a lake, then slowly it is sucking the water through its roots. Because if the grass is on the bank, then it's taking its food from the water, it's utilizing that water. Although we don't see it, we don't see the grass pulling water from the lake, which is growing on its bank. But that's what the grass is doing and growing. So similarly, our senses, which are absorbed in sense objects, they invisibly are taking away our discrimination. And then when discrimination is lost, then one becomes forgetfulness comes, as you will explain. Gives a whole process. इदानीम आत्म व्यतिरिक्त वस्तु आसक्ते है संसार हेतुत्व महा इंद्रिय रीति चतुर्भि. Now in 4 verses he explains how when a person becomes absorbed in objects which are distinct or different from one's own self and from the Lord, then how he becomes caught up in the material world. And this is being described here. Dhyatum anachhatamapi abhyas parvasyenaiva dhyayatam. So here the word is used, dhyayatam, means while thinking. And Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti says that he may not be even thinking consciously. Not that he sits down and says that now I am going to think of sense objects. Like you sit down to chant your rounds and say now I am going to think of the Lord. So this is not the way a person may be really doing it. It is because he has practiced enjoying the sense objects, then the mind is naturally thinking, even when he does not want to think. So he says, anichchatamati, even if one is not willing to do that. Abhyas parvashyena, because of the habit. Dhyayatam aranyapi tishthati, even if one is in the forest alone, then don't think that the person is not going to think of the sense pleasures. There also he will think. Punsham indriyani vishyahi putra kalatradinam sabda sparshadibhi smrityarudhi prathamamaksham. So first the senses, they are pulled by the sense objects. And then what happens? Then the sense objects, which may be in the form of one's children, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, etc. So they become situated in one's memory. And this way the senses are pulled. Tato visyakrishtair indriyair mane akshittam bhav. When the senses are pulled by the sense object, then the mind is pulled by them. So mind follows the senses. You are walking on the street, then you smell the cake, or you see the ice cream. So either you smell it or you see it. So first your sense becomes attracted to it. Your nose becomes attracted. And then the mind immediately follows. So mind then starts running behind the sense. Tatascha buddhe chetana vichar samarthya. And then the intellect follows, which is called here as chetana. So chetana arte buddhi. So buddhi chetana. Chetana here means awareness, vichar samarthya, that power to discriminate whether you should really go for ice cream or cake or not. And this is captivated, so you are no more able to discriminate. You actually use your buddhi now how to get it. So then the example is given here, alakshit harne drishtante. So this happens all invisibly. You are not seeing it happening. All this happens in so subtle manner that you are not aware of it. Visibly means not being aware. So stambha kushadi guchha stiraja, like the kusagras going on the bank of a lake. Swamula is toyam hradad aparati tadu. So by its roots it is pulling the water, but no one sees this. So like that the senses there take away one's intelligence. And once intelligence is gone, then there is no question of coming back. Till the time you are at the level of senses, you can do pratyahar. You can retract your senses. When it goes to the level of mind, already it is a big problem. It's very difficult. Because something goes into the mind and you start thinking and deliberating on that. And then if the intelligence is also pulled along with it, then there is absolutely no chance. Because then you will forget. You may be going to do some other work. Right? On the way you smell it, you forget that you are going somewhere. You go inside and you order the cake, you sit down, then you see some of your friends, you start talking, spend an hour, and everything is over, and so, oh, I was supposed to go into this meeting. So what happened? So this is how you get completely caught in this. So he gives a whole psychological process. See the psychology, how the mind is working. So we'll stop here. I'm going to speak 3 more verses.
It's very subtle.
Very, very subtle.
So the solution to this problem, senses and sense objects, is really speaking the determination.
Determination, yes, for bhakti.
No, like you see this with materialistic businessmen, they are very determined, and when they are in business, their senses are 100% controlled.
Yes.
Absolutely. But then when the business is over, when Wall Street closes,
And
they really go, yeah,
then they go wild. Then the senses come out. Like the tortoise.
they become excessive.
Yes.
So how does a transcendentalist or a yogi or bhakta avoid this? On one hand, constraining his senses, and on the other hand, avoiding this, when there are obviously times when you don't do this. You cannot always just be controlled.
Well, that's where you have to use the discrimination.
So this means not too much, not too little, the balance, as Krishna says.
Yeah, and then ultimately, you see here, I just said that it will become natural later on, but in the beginning one has to practice it. So that's why the practice stage was described before coming to the perfected stage. So in the beginning one has to practice, and practice comes with the proper understanding. Just like why this businessman can control the senses, like you see the shopkeeper, here you go to Loi Bazaar, they can sit there 8 to 10 hours. They control, probably they even forget eating. Why? Because they have fixed their mind that they want to make money, and money will give them enjoyment. So their goal is fixed, and they are very devoted to that, and they have faith in it. So they are able to control. If there are customers coming, the shopkeeper will keep on selling. He will forget about his lunch. So why? Because he is totally devoted to the goal of making money. So similarly, if we become devoted to the goal, then we can control the senses. He has full faith in it. So that's why Jiva Goswami, when he gives an example of the bhakti, he gives example of materialistic. Ya priti ravivekanam vishesvanapayani. He says that the love which the ignorant fools have for sense objects. He says, let me have a similar love for you, O Lord. So the example actually, our ideals are these people.
So ultimately, Prabhuji, everything starts with a thought, not so much pushing of the senses or emotions. There has to be some thought that goes
Thought
hand
comes,
in hand.
and thought may be instigated by the sense.
Instigated.
Ultimately, of course, it comes to the mind. So because senses have also practiced, they have also their own intelligence. It's like, although we think of mind like being situated in one place, but in a sense mind is everywhere. When you try to think of it, it's like all the soul is in one place, but its awareness is spread everywhere in the body, right? In the same way, mind although is in one place, but its characteristic of sensation, feeling, the skin is everywhere. So in that sense, it is present all over the body, and in the sense also. So in a way, sense also can act independently. That's why Krishna says, Indriyasya Indriyasya Arthe Raga Dvesha Vyavastito. Says that every sense has got its own raga and dvesha, like and dislike. So how can sense have a like and dislike if there is no thought? Because like and dislike is related with the thought. Right?
Right.
So although we have the mind, proper mind, but this thing is also gotten into the senses. So that's why people can do things unconsciously. Because the senses are just programmed. I do. So when King Dushyant, he went to the ashram of Kanva Rishi and he saw Shakuntala, who was a very beautiful young girl. After all, she was daughter of Urvashi, Heavenly Apsara, and sage Vishwamitra. So she was extremely beautiful. But she was adopted by Kanva Rishi, who was a Brahmin, and she was living in the ashram. So Dushyanta went to have darshan of Kanva Rishi. The Rishi was not there at that time. He is gone to forest to get some fruits, flowers. This girl was there. He saw her and he immediately fell in love at first sight. So there it is described that when he spoke with her, and because his mind was attracted to her, he did not believe that she is a daughter of a Brahmin. He says that how can my mind become attracted to a Brahmin's daughter? Because I am a Kshatriya. That means the religion was so deep in him that even his senses could not act wrongly. So therefore she asked, whose daughter are you? And she said, I am daughter of Kanva Rishi. And he says, how is that possible that my mind is attracted to you? And then he said, it is not possible. And then she explained that she is an adopted daughter. So this is just to show how the senses also have their own little program, mind or thought process, you can say, or intellect.
So the senses serve the ego, and the ego, as I see it, like in layman's
So
terms.
sometimes you read stories that somebody, some great devotee, sadhu, Vaishnava, and he actually forgot that it is Ekadasi, but when some food with grain was served, he didn't eat it. Somehow the senses refused to eat.
The senses refuse. Is that like easing God out of the picture so that the senses can be enjoyed? Ego easing God
No,
out?
it's not. It's just the senses get trained. There's no God.
It's conditioning.
This is the conditioning of the sense.
So now by using the senses, which are conscious, in a way, in spiritual practice like chanting, having darshan, hearing scripture, etc. So then the senses get used to this, sense gratification. And that's what we call purification, right?
Yeah, they get spiritualized. Means they get used to doing spiritual things. They get habituated. And they will not like something which is not spiritual. Which means even if one is unconsciously in a situation to make a mistake, the senses will not function. That's what it means.